Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday. Happy December. Exciting time, end of the year, kickstart into the new year, and it is power session time. Very excited to be with you today. As we get down to these last few power sessions of the year, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what kinds of areas, what things can we really zero in on that through our experience with thousands of people this year, in groups and in events we've still been able to do in person where we're safe to do so, and digitally a lot of those in our individual coaching engagements. What are the things that really people are going to want to focus on coming out of 2020 to be more aware of, and to be able to have a game plan and higher levels of awareness around moving into the new year that can really serve them well? And as I've reflected on this, there was one thing that came out of a discussion that I was having recently that is not a new topic for some of the clients that I've worked with, but is typically something I run into in groups. I'll get in and do some work within teams, and we run into this really interesting pattern, this really interesting addiction. And addictions are very dangerous. Addictions can rob us of our free will and rob us of our opportunities and rob us of our genius and our brilliance and our potential. And so addictions are certainly not to be messed around with. This one is one that I think is especially dangerous because people don't realize that it is an addiction. People don't always realize its ramifications and the challenges that it can create. And I'd love to share it with you, as well as some tips, some tools to be able to become more aware of it, as well as to be able to shift this pattern, and how to make sure you're not playing into your brain's desire to be safe, to be predictable, to not grow, and to give you some things to focus on in finishing this year strong with action, which is required for any tool. Any tool without action just makes it a thing, not a tool. And it doesn't give you an opportunity to use it to grow. So let's dive into this session right now, and let's jump into this very dangerous addiction that a lot of people don't even realize is an addiction, and most people that are addicted to it don't realize what it's doing to them. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Blanchard, president of Habit Finder, and it is time for our power session. Every Tuesday, right here on the Habit Finder page, we are focused on principles and tools and practices that will challenge the way you think. Why? Because the way you think impacts every single facet of your life. It impacts the behaviors, the actions you take, the decisions you make. It impacts your emotions and your emotional preferences, which most people refer to as personality, which is more of an outcome or a symptom of your thinking, as not as much as an identity. And ultimately, the results you create come from the way you think. Now, of course, if you don't change your actions, you're not going to get different results. But guess what allows your actions to change intentionally rather than temporarily? It is the way that your brain is programmed. It is everything from the way you interpret other people, to the way you interpret your blueprints and possibilities for your life, to the way your brain is processing how your life is actually showing up. Not the way you are processing it, the way your brain is actually unconsciously processing it, because it's using both the blueprints and comparing to how it's actually showing up. And no matter how optimistic or positive you may be, if there's discrepancies, it's going to create some challenges, some compensations that may sip into how you feel about yourself and your self-esteem, make an impact on how you interact with people, your work, and structure. That is what we do at Habit Finders. We want to understand these paradigms. Now, that is a lot. I almost ran out of my breath talking about it. That is a lot, but we want to take it one piece at a time. Because here's the coolest thing about working in the brain. And this is something we share at the beginning of all of our coaching engagements, all of our groups, is it takes a small hinge to swing a big gate in your life. If that hinge is your mind, is how your mind is set, your mindset. Have you ever thought about that in those simple terms? We talk about mindset and we think of it as of this mystical energy or aligning of the stars that suddenly abundance and attraction will just take care of everything and we'll be whisked off into the life we've always dreamed of. A mindset is how your mind is set, how its patterns are interpreted reliably from your past to try and do its best to predict your future. And Augmendino 50 years ago came back and said, it's not just your mind using your past to predict your future. He actually used a much more powerful word when he said, your mind is using your past to imprison your future. If you are exactly where you want to be, you don't need to learn anything else. You don't need to love anybody else. You don't need to grow and become more. Then awesome. Great. Congratulations. This isn't for you. But if you're part of the growing population, especially in 2020, of people realizing that life isn't terrible, life isn't totally destructive, but it's not what it could be. And that's okay. It's okay to want more and still want what you have. It's okay to realize that what you've used to cope, what you've used to make the most out of, to make the lemonade out of your lemons is not good enough anymore. It's been really amazing to watch this year do that for people. And as we wrap up this year with you in Habit Finder and with these power sessions, really particular about some keystone elements, some pillars of how we operate that I think are really important, especially if you've followed me. I love the ones that aren't what we would normally think. The things that kind of catch us off guard, like, wow, I never thought about it that way, or I never realized that was affecting me in that way. I love that stuff. I love pattern disruption. I love blind spots. It's a really fun place to operate because I have been able to facilitate tremendous success for my clients, not because I've gotten them to think the way I think, because I've been able to help them stop thinking the way they're currently thinking in the areas that are holding them back. And what I want to talk about today is a brutal addiction. And I'm not here to compare it to substance addiction. I'm not here to compare it to certain emotional addictions that are very sensitive, very challenging, and affects probably somebody that all of us know and care about and love. Those are major challenges, and I think they should be approached with tremendous sensitivity and empathy to be able to remove the stigma of mental health and addiction and other things, to be able to allow us to be more human. I want to make sure that's really clear here, that I'm not just trying to be cute, but this is a real addiction. An addiction is defined as a condition where you are addicted to an action or a substance or a thing, okay? And I've watched so many people rely on this addiction as a fake success because it gives them all the ingredients, all of the neurological and emotional and sometimes deeply ingrained enough spiritual ingredients of success without ever being sustained. It's like making the ingredients for bread, but you've got to eat the bread. It's really beautiful, it's awesome, but you eat it and it's gone. That's the addiction I want to talk about today, and it is this. It is the addiction to redemption. The addiction to redemption. I'm watching hold more and more incredible people back. It requires talent. It requires ability. It requires potential, all caps, potential, to be able to acquire this addiction to redemption. It sounds a little bit like this. It sounds a little bit like this recurring play in your life where things just slowly get worse. Things slowly start to unravel. Maybe not fast, maybe not all at once, but it seems like as soon as you're on top, it starts disintegrating. And it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and you feel it. It's hopeless. It's helpless. Sometimes you're apathetic to it, like, oh, this is just my life. Here we go again. I'm just going to enjoy the ride, even though it's a ride down, even though it's going to be frustrating, only to hit rock bottom, whatever that is for you in whatever area you're playing this out in, hit some form, some feeling of rock bottom, to then enact your favorite part of the play. Okay? No one enjoys the fall from grace. No one enjoys the deterioration of your happiness, as it were, of your fulfillment, of your success. But everybody loves redemption. Everybody loves the down and out comeback. We're wired for it. The movies that play on this piece, the movies that play on the person who didn't get the fair shot, the person who was misunderstood, who was sabotaged, redemption. It's almost wired in us that if we watch a movie where redemption is not at the end, need to go take a muscle relaxer, need to go chill out and just go to some therapy just to overcome the triggers that the movie creates. A lot of us are wired to the high of redemption, but I want you to take a look at you or anyone around you that seems to have all of this energy, all of this gusto, all of this insight when they're talking about their redemption, when they're talking about no more, this is the end again. And they do a really good job. They can do a really good job. Some are just blatant, cliche, stereotypical crying wolf, okay? But we're talking about they make it sound so much cooler this time. Oh, this is it. I have denied my potential long enough. I have da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And you can hear it. No judgment. I'm not here to beat these people up, especially if it's you. Because I've had my fair share of addictive tendencies to redemption. It feels good to talk about the corner you've turned. It feels good to talk about the dedication that you have revitalized. It feels good to visualize that this is the day you're going to look back to as the turning point. But it creates a major challenge. It creates a dopamine hit. It creates endorphins. It creates the payoff of having created success without having earned it. And what you'll notice is this never-ending cycle of deteriorate, sabotage, bare metal or rock bottom, redemption, but it's all talk. It's all plans. It's all investments. Okay, exactly. Everybody loves a comeback, especially when it's our own. Okay, but please take sound advice from the great philosopher LL Cool J when he said, don't call it a comeback. Don't call it a comeback. Don't call it redemption. If you found yourself in this cycle of deteriorate, sabotage, bare metal, rock bottom, redemption, deteriorate, sabotage, rock bottom, redemption, and just going through this cycle over and over again, it's not only exhausting for you, it's not only frustrating for you, it is especially frustrating for those around you that care about you, that love you, that are very aware of your potential, but in an eye-rolling sort of way. That your brilliance, your genius has started to turn into a joke. It started to turn into something that just gets talked about this is finally the time. This may be, I realize, really painful for some people to hear. Really painful to realize, oh my gosh, I have been more addicted to talking about, presenting my comeback, my redemption, than actually doing it. It is not easy to get out of this cycle, but it is absolutely possible. Step 1, stop talking about it. Stop telling everybody about your redemption that's on its way. Stop talking about the bread you're making while it just went in the oven. Stop talking about it. Write about it and do about it. Period. Write about it and do about it. I'm a big fan of getting it out of here, okay? And the two best ways to do that are to talk about it and to write about it. But if what's perpetualizing, what's creating and enhancing your addiction is talking about it, we need to shut that one down for a little while and write about it where it's just you and you and you and you and whatever other yous are up there in your head. Many of us have lots of them, and the paper and your hand and writing so that you can organize some thoughts. You can set some goals. You can create just enough of a plan to accomplish the next baby step. Because that's the key. Stop talking about it and start writing about it so that you can do about it. Next, pay really close attention to when you're planning. Pay really close attention to the time of day you are preparing. If it is for most of you between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., stop planning during productive hours of the day. Those are the times you will want to be executing. You don't have to execute from 8 to 8, but make sure you're going in, whatever time you're going to be put in, already having the plan in place that you put together in non-essential time. Because what will happen is you'll be like, oh, I got to have a plan for this social media strategy or this launch or this program I'm going to do or whatever. And so we'll spend 10 to 11:30, 12 o'clock planning it out, and we'll feel so amazing from the plan. Then 3 o'clock will come when we're planning to start executing the plan. We don't have anything left, which we don't usually go, I don't have anything left. We just spent the hours in between unconsciously looking for distractions to justify the procrastination, to be able to talk about how busy we are and it just wasn't the right time and we need to regroup and this next Monday is going to be different or whatever else. We play all kinds of games, tell all kinds of stories, but stop talking about it and stop planning during productive time. This is a harder road than someone who is able to execute, someone who is able to get on their path to be directed. We've said many times, my father is the first one I heard say it, that God will not drive parked cars. I was on a mastermind call with our coaches, and our director of operations got on and reminded me of something awesome that I shared with her a while back when she said, if we're going to ask for guidance on the path, we've got to be on the path, okay? If we want direction for who to go to, what to do, how to do it, we've got to be headed down the path. And you think about walking down a path, if you're in action, okay, there is plenty of room for course corrects, plenty of room for recalibrating, plenty of room for that classic GPS rerouting, okay? But if you're not on the path, if you're not going somewhere, then we're going to continue to just cycle back to sabotage, procrastinate, deteriorate, bare metal, rock bottom. And then we can only stay there for a certain amount of time until we get excited about our latest redemption. Okay. And we get all of our energy piped up about what we're posting on social media. And we get piped up about all, going to that networking group and talking with greater dedication than ever before. But we're not getting back to the baby steps that we avoided in the first place. That was the first step out the door we took to deterioration and sabotage. You will find yourself, one of the indicators you are a potential addict of redemption is you are a master of reasons. You have all the reasons in the world. And when you get fed up with your own reasons, then comes redemption. But it's a presentation, it's a high, and then all of a sudden we start noticing all the reasons it's not going to work out this time. And it gets worse and worse and worse. And then we do it again. This is such a challenging thing to overcome. And I'm asking you to do things that normally you would want to do in a more intentional sequence. But when there's an addiction, okay, like you could meet, let's say part of your business was to meet people. And you can meet people at a bar. But if you're addicted to alcohol, I wouldn't recommend you go meet people at a bar, even though it's a great place to meet people and bring walls down and connect and whatever else. On a social level and even potentially a professional level, I wouldn't recommend doing that. So I wouldn't recommend that you talk a lot about your plans and your redemption as much as make your primary focus be evidence. Evidence is your antidote to this addiction. If your mission becomes to mount and create and to organize evidence, proof of your redemption. And something's interesting that happens when you start to understand this. You realize something really beautiful, that there is no redemption. There was no fall from grace. There was no destruction. there were just lessons to be learned. You're not broken. You're not stuck in the ways that you think you are stuck. It's a matter of stepping back and realizing when we seek evidence, when we seek execution, that all of a sudden the tables turn and we realize, oh my gosh, I don't need that to be enough. I'm already enough. And now I can finally pursue that more consistently. I can finally have some wins to struggle, conquer, and actually acquire, and then move to the next piece. Last thing that I want to share in terms of what we want to focus on here to overcome this addiction to redemption. It's tough because it sounds really bad when you point it out, okay? Like, oh my gosh, I do that. Oh, that's me. And the temptation would be to now use this as your next redemption and to circle right back in. Oh my gosh, Paul pointed it out. And so we sabotage and we disintegrate and we deteriorate and we suddenly realize we're no longer going to do that. And what do? We jump right back into redemption, but now we're redemption of our redemption. It just gets really challenging, really difficult. But a beautiful thing happens. And one of the greatest principles, and I've talked about this a lot, comes down to the beauty of our mediocre. See, our mediocre, the definition of mediocre is a halfway up the jagged mountain. It is our most reliable level of performance. And people that love their mediocre are able to improve it. Their mediocre this year is a hell of a lot better than their mediocre was last year, and even better than their mediocre was the year before. So they're able to take their mediocre and start to build baby steps and settle in, create new habits. And then guess what happens to their mediocre? It meets their new level. And then they create baby steps and evidence, okay? Evidence, habits, and then their mediocre rises again. That's how we overcome, rather than going, I hate my mediocre. I know I'm so much better than this. And that idea creates this deterioration, sabotage, redemption. But we just redeem ourselves back to our mediocre. And then sabotage, redemption, and the mediocre never changes. In fact, sometimes we get so exhausted that the next time we come down here, the mediocre goes, okay, well, I'll come down here so the redemption doesn't need to be quite as violent. So one of the other ways that we do this, stop talking about it, stop planning during important times, essential time, stop fighting your mediocre, stop resisting your status quo, embrace it. It's the most reliable level of performance you have. Love it, and then try to be just a little bit better than that. Because if you do that, you'll be more willing to start where you actually are, rather than give in to the reasons, the excuses, and the frustrations of a brain that doesn't want to start where you are. It wants to start where you know you could be, or even where you know you should be, right? Because of all your potential, all your ability. So I would ask, as you start to conclude this challenging year, and as we start to pull out and hopefully start to see some light at the end of several tunnels that have been very dark this year, some of them very personal to all of you, some of them very collective to all of us, that we don't trick ourselves into getting addicted to the presentation of our redemption rather than the acquisition of our evidence, of our execution, of our actions, and our habits, through an embrace of our current level of performance, our current mediocre, so that we can improve it, rather than keep dipping below it, only to have the high of redemption, which when we get to proclaim our high of redemption, we get to feel one of the most synthetic, inauthentic drugs in the world, and that is relief. See, I don't know anyone that isn't hungry in some level of their life for greater levels of peace, but settle for its synthetic, fake substitute, and that is relief. Now, sometimes relief is the best place to start. When it's really destructive, it's really bad. But we want to make sure we understand the difference between relief and peace. Because relief is like me punching you in the stomach all year. And now we're going to go into 2021, and I'm just going to flick you in the ear. And you go, oh, that feels better. That's relief. Peace is realizing, oh, I'm the one punching myself in the stomach. I can stop because I'm not broken. There is nothing inherently or intrinsically wrong with me. I'm already good enough. And I don't mean that from a woo-woo kumbaya place. I mean, you have got what you need to get to where you want to go. If you didn't, it would be impossible for any human to advance if you didn't have what you need to become who you already are. And suddenly the tables turn and we realize that this life has been about revealing our gifting, revealing our brilliance, not chasing after something we don't have. And that is a powerful game to play. Be patient. When we're addicted to redemption, there's very little patience. It's a roller coaster. Redemption! Ah! So be patient with the baby steps, the intentional increments to be a little bit better than your mediocre, so that that embrace can allow your mediocre to improve, so that you become a little bit more of who you already are and are able to be that person a little bit longer and get back there a little bit faster, because you're no longer willing to settle for the drug of redemption. You're willing to get to work and seek that guidance on the path rather than from the couch. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful week. Spending some time looking at yourself. We all do this in certain ways, and it will allow us to gain greater levels of clarity and empathy for being able to notice it in other people. You are super welcome, Valerie. I'm really glad that my animation pays off for some people. I realize I'm larger than life. It's the way I was born. I love it. I embrace it. And I hope that it continues to serve as many of you as possible. And those that it doesn't, that's totally okay. That's why there's a lot of us working in human potential, working to make this world a better place. And I have all the love in the world and respect for all of you that are doing that. And hopefully we get an opportunity to collaborate, to serve together, to grow together, probably cry together, right, Audrey? Okay. We get an opportunity to be able to become better. So thank you all. Create a great day. We'll see you next week on the power session. I don't think that, actually, yeah, next week's power session will be the last one of the year. So, because then I go into crazy birthday mode and into Christmas. It's my birthday, then my wife's birthday, then my oldest daughter's right in a row. And then we catch our breath barely in time to be ready for Christmas and New Year's. So love you all. Massive respect. Thank you for being someone who is investing your time into improving, not just in being able to scream redemption. Audrey, you are amazing, an exceptional human being. So I appreciate you being as powerful as you are and willing to go where you went. So thank you, Scott. Thank you, Amy, Charlie, Judy, everybody that joined us today. Please tag someone who you think might have needed to hear this, as hard as it might be for them to hear it, so that we can become those that are based on evidence, not just on some presentation to create an emotional high. So, all right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.